how to use Kleki just to experiment with your portrait to be able to, before you start watercolor painting anyway. And this one, you know, you can try it many, many times and there's no mistakes, and I just want you to be really creative with it. So I have a picture here of Donna Grantis, who is a Canadian rock guitar player. She actually played with Prince for a long time before he passed away. Anyway, I saw her live in Toronto and she's freaking awesome. So anyway, I got to open up my image. I got to add as a layer, and I can put okay. Now what I want to do on Kleki is I want to paint on top of Donna. So I want to go to layers. I want to add a new layer. Okay, when it's got these boxes, that means that it's transparent, which means it will show what's underneath, and that's what I want. If it's solid like this, that means it's just like a white square. Okay, so we're going to under brush. Now, I want you to really be free and really experiment with this. Now, the nice thing is that we're going to have the sketch showing through underneath. So I want to go back to our color theory, and I want to talk about our opposite colors. So if you remember our good old color wheel, because as you know, there's no skin tone necessarily in Kleki, and I think that we misjudge what skin color is, no matter like how dark or how light it is. Let me see if I can find my, here we go, here's my good old color wheel. Okay, so let's just look at the color wheel and just remind you of complementary colors or opposite colors. So we've got to remember then opposite colors then are green and red. It looks really burgundy here. Green and red, or blue and orange, and purple and yellow. And we're doing that because that's actually going to have a kind of cool effect on skin color, because skin is about a whole bunch of different colors. We have red blood going through it, cool blood going through it, right? So we're going to try a bunch of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start with some complementary colors. I'm going to start with a green, and I'm going to have my opacity down like 1. Okay, because I want to mimic watercolors. I'm going to have my paintbrush actually quite big because I just want to kind of go for it. I'm going to pick sort of a mid-tone color. I always test it on the side here, like that's your test paper. It's kind of bluey. Okay, that looks pretty good. We can erase all that stuff later. What I want you to do now is I just want you to work around. I want you to go fast. I want you to have some freedom, just where there's like shadows and stuff, okay? So this isn't a coloring page. This is like building up layers. In watercolor, with the very brief exercises that we did, we know that we can work wet on wet, we can work dry on dry, wet on dry, right? And they all have sort of different effects. With watercolor, you just have to be patient. Okay, so I'm just kind of roughly putting in where the shadows are. Okay, and just like in watercolor paint, the more I kind of go in one spot, the darker it gets, which is why I'm using it quite big here. Okay, so we have the shadows underneath on it. It's kind of to be your guide. Okay, so we want to fill most of the face, but yes, people aren't green. What's the opposite of green? Red. Let's try a red. Okay, there's a nice, it's kind of orangey. Get over there. Okay, I'm going to go, let's test it out. Okay, that looks really nice. So that's sort of the cool deoxygenated blood sort of going through our system. And again, our skin, regardless of how light or how dark it is reflecting everything that's around it. I mean, I'm pretty pale, but there's no white on my face. So really, there shouldn't be any white really on here. Okay, so with this, again, I'm going to just sort of go back and bring some warmth in here. And I'm just sort of going over some of the shadows, because even in like here, that like none of it's white, right? So I'm kind of working from the outside edge, layers. So just like in watercolor, you work generally with big washes first, and then you build up to sort of more detail. Okay, we build up to more detail, and then we also not only do we build up more detail, but we also like get our colors like more opaque, which is more solid. Okay, and again, like I just want you to go for this, right? This is our practice one. So your eye sockets, I got glasses on, they're pretty dark. Mine are just bags under my eyes. But already, see how nice it looks? It starts to like bring some skin tones and stuff to life. So the way I work, I'm not an expert. Spray paint works the same way. But you're just building out layers. Okay? So play around with it, have fun with it. Okay, let's go back to the cool colors. So what's sort of a dark, because I don't want you to use black, what's a darker tone of the green? It would be like a nice deep blue. But I'm looking here and I feel that it's more warm colors than dark. So I'm going to actually go with a darker sort of red here for me. And I'm going to still have the opacity down. I'm going to test it here. That's a nice dark color. So if it had more cool colors, and I've made I'm just going to add some detail now on it. If you had more cool colors, then I would go with a deep purple or a blue, because that's darker than a green. Mine's turning out a bit warm, so I'm going with just a deeper red, right? And then this is when I can really like zoom in. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. This is just practice, right? And again, you're not dealing with the greatest program. But now I'm just going to go in and I'm going to look okay, what needs more definition. Our lips blend in very much to our skin and our body and our face. They're not red. They're only red. That's like if you put lipstick on and like that's a photo shoot sort of thing, right? So the lips shouldn't stand out too much unless, your person, you want them to, and they, having the red lips is part of it. Anyway, I'm going to do this fast. You're going to do it better. But I just want you to start to see how I'm building up all those shadows. My stylus is a bit sticky. I wish pencils worked on mine because I just find them actually nice and smooth and you have that nice fine point. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I meant to move it. Okay, so I have a darker color and it's a bit more detailed, right? So I'm adding in, see how that's starting to come together? All the dark parts here. I have it like a little bit size 17, because that's what works, right? This sort of defines things a bit more. Okay, so keep playing around with that. Again, there's a lot of white spots on that, and there's not really any white on your face. I haven't done her hair or anything like that. I'm kind of goofing around. Okay, because it's very warm, I'm going to finish it with warm. You have to decide, maybe it's going to be more cool colors, but for me, I'm going to pick a nice yellow. Because I want it I'm going to do sort of a light yellow. Again, just like the pencil crayons, like we did for tattoos, right? It's all about layers, right? It's showing some of the color underneath. So I'm going to use a nice thick one. That's going to bring in, like if you look at my face, the light's kind of hitting here, but everywhere else, it's not. There's no white in it. So what I'm doing is I'm just filling up some of those highlights. I still want it to be highlighted. I still want to show that light's hitting places, but I don't want it to be white, right? The nose actually is fine. There's a little bit of a shadow here, right? And again, you want to go back and forth with different kind of stuff. If you want to really try some stuff, I'm going to stay with the warm colors. I'm going to go with, ooh. If you want to kind of go funky, you can imagine there's like spray paint dots, right? And this is why I have if I use the selection tool and I want to go back to that green, that's why I have the greens here. It'll pick them for me, right? If you want to try just some funky stuff, right? It's like as if you're using spray paint, right? You do the same thing with, try some stuff on the background. I don't know, go for it, right? I don't know. Keep playing around with that. And if you don't like it, I try some different stuff. I have some cool colors going to come on up. But honestly, don't try and make them, you know, pretty or like, I want you really to just experiment and let the Kleki go with it with the colors and try some stuff. Okay? And see just sort of what happens with everything. Okay? This is your place to experiment before we go into a watercolor paint. Okay? When you're done, make sure that you save it, and then you're ready to go.